Thank you for joining us for our dementia Q&A, our question and answer with Melanie Bunn. Today we're talking about managing stress during the holidays. And it feels like it's a little bit early, but we're going to need this sooner than we think. So really quickly, Dementia Alliance, we would like to thank ASI and Lily for supporting our efforts so that we can do these question and answer services for free. And Melanie is a nurse trainer that we work with often, and she has tons of experience. And I go to her for my dementia questions and answers. So I'm glad you all have joined too. So Melanie, I'm just going to let you take it away and jump right in.
Thank you, thank you. And it seems kind of early unless you go to Target.
That's true.
And if you go
Yeah.
to Target, you realize you are way far behind because they practically sold out of the Halloween stuff, and there's not even much Thanksgiving stuff, and it's all moving into New Year's and Christmas and all the other holidays that are coming up. So if you go to Target, you're feeling like you're behind. So I do want to thank everybody for coming. I do have some prepared things to say, and I also would love it if we could truly make this more of conversation and more of kind of a question answer. But just to kind of get us started, I'm going to share my screen and show you a little bit about where my brain is going, which is Dementia Alliance, managing stress. It's complicated because holidays are complicated. Because even though we have this expectation that holidays are supposed to be light and full of joy and full of happiness and goodness and all the things, they're complicated. And dementia is complicated because we've got changes that are going on to the structure of people's brains, and changes that are going on to the chemicals of people's brains, and changes that are going on because of the type of dementia and because of the level of dementia. And if you're interested in some of these things, we have resources for a lot of these, and other people have resources for a lot of these. And I will be, after we finish, probably actually more likely tonight, I'll send Lisa a copy of this PowerPoint, and she can send it out if she'd like to, if you would like a copy. So you don't have to vigorously jot down names and numbers and ideas and thoughts. You can just kind of hang out and listen. So that's a possibility. Um, I didn't mean to do that. Um, that's weird. So when you put something that's stressful like holidays and something that's challenging like dementia, and you put them together, you can either wind up with something that is truly meaningful and joyful, or you can wind up with something that gets really, really complicated. Because in all of these, I think there are three really powerful components. There's the component of family and other significant people, family and neighbors and friends and people who should be family but aren't actually family, but all of those layers of important people. So we've got that component. We've got the component of faith, which may or may not be um, a, a religious faith, that may be more spiritual in nature. It may be more, this is my faith in the future, or my faith in the relationships, or my faith in the meaning of what my life mission has been. Or it absolutely can be faith that's more related to a more spiritual kind of piece. And the third component I think that we have in there are the festivities. So all of those rituals and all of those things that we put together that all you have to do is smell a smell and you know what event we're talking about, or all you have to do is see a piece of your house and you know, or a table piece of the table, and you know what this festivity is about, what the meaning of this time is about. So I'm going to stop sharing there, kind of having opened it up and kind of introduced it that way. And I've got more prepared. I can go there should we need to, but I am going to kind of keep it open to what are your questions about connecting these two complicated things of dementia and holidays in a way that creates joy and not distress, a way that helps with managing the stress. So what kind of questions do you have that you would like to unmute and ask, or you would like to just drop in the chat and ask?
I have to give everybody time to type.
So we'll take that, and if we don't have any questions, we got some ahead of time, and I gotta put some of those into a little program. So if we don't get any specific questions, I can definitely move forward with peace. So I think I will go back to the PowerPoint and we will move forward. So I said we'll move forward with peace, and I wasn't actually, I was actually being a little bit literal, in that peace is something I've been using for a few years now. When I've been supporting people who are thinking about the holidays and or anything in life, and how to kind of find a way to really bring peace to the holidays. So the first P, or the P, stands for prioritize. And what I mean by that is to really take some time and think through of all the things that you do for this holiday, of all the things when you think back from last year, back to the years when you were a child, back to the years when the person you care with was a child. What are the traditions that really have the most meaning for you? What are the pieces that, and of those traditions, what are the most important pieces of those? So with the person living with dementia, we're really going to want to think back to um, not just the recent pieces, the pieces that have been true for them as adults, but really think back to growing up, what were the holidays like? Growing up, what was important about this when I was a young adult, when I was raising my own children, when I was a child? What are the pieces that are important? And specifically, of those events, what were the pieces that were the most important? So, for example, when you think about Thanksgiving, just drop into the chat or take a moment and unmute and say out loud, when you think about Thanksgiving, what comes to mind? What are some of the pieces of Thanksgiving that really come to mind? What would it not be Thanksgiving without? So thank you, Donna, because Donna dropped in the chat, dinner together with family. So I'm gonna ask you to clarify a little bit, Donna, and you can still do it in the chat. When you say dinner, do you mean lunch or supper? Because dinner can mean either. So Donna's thinking about dinner, meaning lunch with family. So that middle of the day kind of meal with family. Is it a formal thing or is it more casual, Donna? You can drop it in the chat or you can unmute and say it out loud. So to unmute, you push the little microphone thing where it says mute or unmute.
Okay, can you hear
Yeah,
me now?
we can.
So I don't know, not formal like everybody dresses up and wears a dress and all of that, but more casual holiday-ish clothing and more like maybe a 2 o'clock meal where when the turkey is done and we all sit down and then later in the evening is when we may have dessert and coffee or something like that.
Yeah. So thinking about kind of a middle of the afternoon, so you kind of snack in the morning, but you don't want to eat much because there's that big meal coming. And everybody is uncomfortable because you know you're going to be uncomfortable when you finish eating the meal potentially. And then there's going to be football or there's going to be time with kids and family, and you want to be comfortable for that. And so that's a beautiful description of what Donna's Thanksgiving is like with her family. Does anybody do anything similar or something different? And you can drop it in the chat or you can just say it out loud. I'm going back to see if I missed anything. So something similar or something different for somebody. So Brenda's saying we just eat all day long. She said graze, but what she really means is we just nibble, nibble, nibble all day long, and being with the people who are important to you is what makes Thanksgiving for her. For anybody else, similar or different? So for my family, we do Thanksgiving the night before. Because early on, when people started getting married and it was a challenge of we're going to be with here or with here, and how are we going to make this work? My mom's request was, I want everybody to be together. I don't care when it is. I don't care if it's Thanksgiving Day. I don't care if it's the fourth Thursday. I don't care. I just want everybody together. So what we kind of agreed on was Wednesday night is when we have our Thanksgiving dinner. We can shop anyway. We're not going to talk about that. So a little bit about what might mean different things to different people. So really think about what are the pieces that are most important. Then we're going to move into really thinking about those events, those traditions. What might it be like if this was brand new to you? The sights and the sounds and the experiences. If this were brand new to you, what would it seem like? Would it seem beautiful and interesting and exciting and novel? Or would it seem familiar but different? Because that's what it begins to become when we're looking at these experiences through the eyes and through the brains of the person living with dementia, through what they hear and what they might see. And I mean, what would happen if I came home from work one day and there was a tree growing out of my living room floor? I might be a little startled because I might not be used to that tree being there. And all of a sudden, there is a tree in my living room. Or some of the other things, I might be used to using this banister as I'm walking up to the stairs, and now this banister has garland wrapped around it and flashing lights and angels hanging from it. That's what I do with my banister. But it might look different if I had dementia. So empathizing with what if this would really work for the person living with dementia? And what if this might begin to be a little bit different, might begin to be a little bit uncomfortable because dementia changes everything in people's brains. It doesn't just change the memory part, which is what we think about. It changes, absolutely, it changes memory, and it changes back here with your vision, and it changes right here with your understanding language, and it changes right here with your ability to move, and it changes right here with your ability to use your words, and it changes right here with things like your impulse control. So it changes all of the parts of the brain, and that's going to change how people react and respond to what's going on, especially if they're changing where they're remembering in time. And often for people, especially with Alzheimer's disease, they begin to remember, or the past is more core to their life experience than their present. So they may be looking for things the way they used to be and not necessarily the way they are now. So that ability to really think about, these are wonderful, and are they wonderful now? So thinking about that empathize piece. Then the A stands for adjust. How can the plans, how can the expectations, how can the events be switched up a little bit? How can they be changed a little bit? And some of those changes might be any of the pieces that are important. The time or the people or those kinds of things. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment, and I'm going to tell you a story. And the story I'm going to tell you is about a lady whose husband was admitted to an assisted living, and he was admitted to an assisted living in the fall. And so the first main holiday that they were approaching, where they weren't going to be living together, long, beautiful, wonderful marriage. This Thanksgiving was the first holiday that they weren't going to be together. And so she became really committed to changing the holiday and make giving him the holiday that he would have had, even though the place was different. And so she went to the people who worked at the assisted living, and she said, I am going to pay for Thanksgiving for everybody who lives here in the memory care unit. I'm going to pay for everything. I'm going to pay for the food, and I'm going to pay for extra staff. I'm going to pay for everything because I want it to be special. And the staff said, well, that's great. That's exciting. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And she said, so let me tell you about the menu. We're going to have turkey, and we're going to have fried turkey, and we're going to have ham, and we're going to have roast beef. Now, how many of y'all are already starting to get it just a little bit? I'm not so sure about all of this. And we're going to have potatoes. We're going to have whipped potatoes, and we're going to have baked potatoes, and we're going to have um, um, sweet potatoes, and we're going to have sweet potatoes in a casserole, and we're going to have some boiled potatoes with some cheese and some Parmesan and basil on. And we're going to have salad, and we're going to have broccoli, and we're going to have asparagus, and we're going to have a string bean casserole, and we're going to have carrots, and we're going to have cauliflower, and we're going to have corn, and we're going to have biscuits, and we're going to have rolls, and we're going to have cornbread. So how many of y'all want to go to this meal? Anybody interested in going? Donna's smiling like she thinks she wants. Beth is going. A couple of people are wanting to go to that meal. But what are your reservations about that being the meal for people living with dementia? What kind of makes you double think that or rethink that? Or do you think it's a fantastic idea?
It's too many choices.
Hmm. It's too many choices. And Lisa put down too much food and too many choices and too many options and overwhelming. One of the saddest celebrations I ever saw in my life happened at the Golden Corral. I was in a small town. There weren't many places to eat, and the Golden Corral was the place to eat. And I saw this lady, and she walked in with a rollator, and there were balloons tied to her rollator. It was obviously her birthday. The balloon said "Happy Birthday," and they took her to the Golden Corral down the big buffet thing. It was terrible, because it was exactly what we're talking about. It was overwhelming. It was too many choices. It was just too much. And so this lady said, and I'm gonna pay for all this food. I didn't even get to desserts. How many types of pie are there, and cakes are there, and fudge are there? All of them were on her menu. And so then she said, and we like to have our Thanksgiving dinner at 7 o'clock at night. We want to have it after the sun goes down, because we want to do it by candlelight. So we're going to have the lights turned off, and we're now Bob's starting to smile a little bit, and Donna's kind of, oh, she's already gone somewhere else. We're going to have it by candlelight. And another family tradition is for Thanksgiving, we dress the children up like elves. Now I've got Lita smiling. I've got Sherry shaking her head. Carol is kind of looking a bit confused. Beth is shaking her. Everybody I can see is kind of going, "Oh man." Um, and we're gonna dress the grandchildren up like elves, and they run around the table and they give everybody gifts. Okay, so those of you who are shaking your heads and kind of looking a little concerned, what are you thinking? You can unmute and say it out loud, or you can just drop it in the chat. What are you thinking about her activity, her event?
She's not taking into consideration her audience.
So she's doing it out of a place of love, and she's doing it out of a place of wanting to provide, and she needs to pull back a little bit and think about, who is she doing this for? Is she really doing it for the people living with dementia, or is she really doing it for herself? Not in a bad way, but in a wanting it to be the way it used to be, the way it's supposed to be. So it's really easy to think, what are for somebody else's holiday? For somebody else's holiday, yeah, they would think it would be scary. The little children dress like elves. I'll tell you the honest truth. I am a nurse. I would not want to work evenings after that event. Just wouldn't want to do it. Too much noise, too much confusion. Beth say, leave me out. I'll get my plate to go. Um, and so all the things that could be changed, we could have it a different time of day. We could have simplified the menu. We could not dress the children up like elves. So we could make changes in who's there. And it's very easy to look at that for other people's events and think about that. But when it comes to my family's events, what do you mean we can't have everybody there at the same time? That's what Thanksgiving is about, is having all of the family there at the same time. And if all of the family there at the same time includes 12 children, or sometimes 3 children, to be honest with you, between the ages of newborn and 18, it's a lot. And we can think about it for other people's festivities or other people's events. But when we start to think about it for me and my family, and thinking about doing something different, it gets really painful, because maybe we have to really think about, everybody can't be there at the same time, or we need to do it at a different time of day, or we need to do it in a different environment or a different situation, to really make it work. So when we start to think about, how are we going to adjust Part of that we can do ahead of time by thinking we're not going to have everybody in the same space at the same time, or we're going to have a buffet instead of a sit down, or a sit down instead of a buffet. How are we going to modify and simplify it? And a lot of it has to be done in the moment. So we're going to want to really keep the focus on that person living with dementia, watching for when is it going well, and when are they starting to maybe show some signs that they're getting a little bit restless and or a little distressed. And that might be what they say, it might be what they do, it might be more, or it might be less. So either way, to really watch for those things. And so some of y'all were saying, I'm getting mine to go. I don't want to be there for that. We might want to have a space where everybody can get some time away, have a little quiet place to kind of rest and to kind of relax and to kind of think through what is really this about? What's really the message of this moment? So I think this adjust one is complicated and involves a lot of conversation with curiosity. So conversation with curiosity with some of those questions. So what is the most important thing to you, my loving sister, about to you, my loving brother, to my mom with dementia? What are the most important things? And how do we help everybody get what they need and still be talking to each other at the end of the day? And nobody winds up in the emergency department and nobody, all of those things. So the next letter, the C in peace, the C in peace stands for capture. And I don't mean capture the children and tie them down, even though sometimes I don't know that that's a bad, anyway, we don't tie down children. But, capture, because holidays bring out memories. They bring out the mute, because memories, we think about memories as being stored like this. But memories are really stored like this. There's some things that I only remember when I associate with them with something that's deeper in a sensory way. So, have you ever been riding down the road and a song comes on the radio and all of a sudden you find yourself just really jamming out and you remember that that was the song they played at the skate ranch back when I was in middle school, when I was starting to pay attention to boys and I still didn't know what to do with them? So that music or those photographs or the ornaments or the food or the pictures or the whatever brings back those memories. And so really paying attention and encouraging and supporting those storytelling. It's easier than ever to save those memories because practically everybody has a phone that will record stuff. So audio or video or the most beautiful holiday pictures are often just those little spontaneous candid moments of when grandma's holding grandbaby or great grandbaby and there's that eye contact that just becomes so powerful. So really taking advantage of any of those moments that later on we've got those moments of this event, and we can also hold on to those moments from the past because I might use an ornament to bring back some stories that nobody else in the family may know. Or using a picture of, it might be a picture of the grandchild in Santa's lap, and that recalls when I took not my grandchild, but my son to go sit. So bringing back all of those memories, using those props, pictures and food and decoration and the smells and the sights and the music and all of the stuff that really triggers those emotions, which then subsequently triggers those memories, and being aware that not all of those memories might be happy memories. You know, we've got memories of when somebody was missing, or the first year that the chair was empty. And we've got memories of moments that didn't bring joy, but instead brought sadness, and finding that's part of the family history. Because family histories aren't all about the joy and the pleasure. It's about some of the change and the loss. So finding a way to connect with those memories might be powerful and meaningful as well. And that kind of layers into the second E, which really stands for enjoy. So there's an old story, it's a Bible story, but there's an old story about two sisters. This is just the one I know. I think there's stories about sisters in lots of different cultures. I have stories about my sisters, but in this particular story, there was a Mary and a Martha, and the Mary and the Martha had a friend, and the friend was there visiting, and Martha was off running around doing all the stuff that older sisters do. And she was dealing with the food, and she was dealing with the cleaning it up, and she was dealing with where people are sitting, and she was dealing with all of the logistics, and Martha's out there doing all of the work, all of the work, all of the work. And Mary's just kind of hanging out being the little sister. You know, she's hanging out there, talking with the friend, talking with the guest, enjoying hearing the stories, being with the person. And so the Martha comes to the guest and the Mary and says, "You should tell my sister to get her butt up off that." I'm obviously paraphrasing, but you should tell my sister to get her butt up off that couch and help me in the kitchen. And the the friend, the visitor, the guest said, "She's doing exactly what she should be doing. Time is short and moments are precious." And so finding that time to be together might truly be what people remember, and not that everything hit the table at the same time, and that all of the dishes were washed and put away before the guest left. So I'm going to pause myself because that is the piece. Prioritize, empathize, adapt, capture, and enjoy. That's the piece words that I use. And I'm gonna open it up now for questions about hows and whys and should we's or couldn't we's or wouldn't we's, or and kind of open it up for a few minutes for questions. I can talk forever. Lisa will tell you I can talk forever. So if you don't have questions, I can talk forever, but I would really love some questions because this is a Q&A. So what are your questions? You can drop them into the chat, or you can unmute and say it out loud.
I think for myself, um, I've learned a lot from your organization, and especially today with the holidays. I'm my mother's caregiver. Um, my parents live in the house around the corner from me, so I don't have her living with me, but I'm there every day. I have three older sisters, and my one sister has invited them for Thanksgiving, and all of this information I feel like she needs, because my sister is like that woman who she has about 15 grandchildren. She has a humongous house that has a cathedral ceiling. The noise is going to be very loud. The children are going to be running around, and she's going to have 1,000 things of food. And I can just see my mother becoming very, very overwhelmed. And I'm concerned for my mother, because I think my sister is going to be like that woman. She means well, but she doesn't get it. And I don't know how to present this information to her where she'll actually ingest it and maybe reconsider the way that she's going to do this Thanksgiving, because everything that she puts on is gigantic. Any family event is gigantic. And I am very worried about my mother becoming overwhelmed. And when she does, she shuts down and she retreats. So I'm grateful that you're going to put this available, this PowerPoint. I wish that I wish that other people had the means to hear this and know what to do with it. And so I don't really have a question, but a thank you for putting this together, because I can see this happening.
And that's why we do this. I mean, because, elaborate holidays are really common, and the expectations are really high. And so we can try to support you in a couple of ways. So the PowerPoint will be available. There's a Word document that has some similar kinds of things that Lisa can send out. We can because sometimes, and it's sometimes what happens is people can't hear it from their own family, but they can hear it from somebody else. So I'm a nurse practitioner and I travel all over the country and even some parts of the world telling people about dementia and aging and safety. And I'm a nurse, and my mother a few years ago put a towel on the step that you walk on to get in the house. And that to me didn't seem like a very good idea. It seemed like, and I said, "So, Mom, tell me about this towel you've got here." And she said, "Well, I wiped my feet on it." Well, that made it even worse because now she's wiping her feet on this towel. And I said, "Well, Mom, that worries me." She says, "Oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it." So what I did is I went back the next day and I said, "Mom, I talked to a friend of mine who's an occupational therapist. And my friend Teepa said that this is not a good idea." And my mom said, "Oh, well, if Teepa doesn't think it's a good idea, I should take it back." So it's just kind of that idea that sometime, and then I called Teepa and said, "By the way, you told my mom this wasn't a good idea." And she said, "I'm glad I did that. Very smart." So sometimes it can't come from us with their own families. Sometimes it has to come from somebody else. So use some of this, even there's some other um Alzheimer's Tennessee used to have a recording of me doing this content. Lisa, I don't know if we've got something on our your YouTube channel. If not, that would be a pretty easy one for me to do, to make available for holidays. We can do that if we don't have it. So it's not you telling, it's somebody else telling.
And
Does
that is definitely what I struggle with. I have a very, very close relationship with my mother, and there's a lot of jealousy with my older siblings because of that. And so, unfortunately, I'll never be praised for anything I do, but I will always be criticized for what I do for my mom. So even if it's like putting it out for the holidays versus Thanksgiving, because I know she's going to my sister's for Thanksgiving, if I can say, here's something that I've discovered for any type of holiday get together that we can all use, be it Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, whatever, that might be an easier way for them to be open to listening to it, or taking some of that information into consideration.
Yeah. And then it may be I get what you're saying, that it's, you know, dementia brings out the best and the most challenging in families, and the holidays bring out the best and the most challenging in families, and you put that configuration together, and you're headed towards potential. Yeah, it can be a lot. And so having some resources for how to have those conversations, maybe we want to come up with something about questions to ask. You know, what's the most important part? And everybody can fill it out. So maybe it's the most important part is that there's the whole meal and the whole kids, and mom comes for dessert. You know, or maybe it's mom comes for the meal and then leaves before, just, you know, there's some piece of it, because the very last thing I want people to leave with is the idea that we leave people living with dementia out of the holidays. That's absolutely not what I want anybody to hear, because holidays are important to human beings. We have these rituals, all cultures and all people have these rituals, and we do them because it's something we as human beings, our spirits need. You know, our spirits need this. And so finding ways to make it accessible is kind of what I'm encouraging. So and I'm looking at, it looks like Emily wrote something, and thank you for dropping those in there. Lisa, you're really on the ball. And Emily wrote big event at Christmas and Thanksgiving, something to explain, and y'all overlapped just by a minute because Lisa just dropped some things in there. And maybe you can also send out that link when you send out the PowerPoint, Lisa. That might be another way. There also is it's not exact, but it's something else I did about visiting after COVID, which has some similar kinds of, you may see changes, and these are some of the changes you may see. So Lisa will kind of capture that, and maybe we do something a little different to kind of focus on that. So that's a great question, Emily, and we'll try to have some resource available fairly soon. So what other questions or other ideas or thoughts does anybody have? Thanks for sharing, Donna. Oops, I think somebody else just posted something, some of the links. So Wendy's asking for those. I think Lisa has the ability to send those out. So what other questions or thoughts does anybody else have about the holidays, about preparing family, about any of those things?
Is there
You can.
anything to tag along with that? Like my sister's inviting her to Thanksgiving, but she lives 2.5 hours away, so they're going to be staying there. So I don't know if there's anything to piggyback on this as far as the holidays. You know, if you have a dementia person that's going to come visit you, and how to make it as comfortable as possible for them. This is something that my mother has not done in over a year or more, of staying with anyone and being put in this situation where there's Thanksgiving and a different home and all of that. It's going to change her ritual. It's definitely going to change her ritual. And I don't know if there's anything to piggyback on that or not.
So I'm thinking, and Lisa is the queen of resources. I'm thinking there's something we did a while ago about traveling that might have some of those things in there about kind of keeping to the routines, kind of keeping some of the pieces the same when everything else is changing. So I'm thinking there might be some other links and handouts, and Lisa's going to send you a volume of stuff.
Thank you.
So yeah. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint for just some little bit more of reflection. Um, with one of the questions that came in ahead of time was how involved is the person living with dementia in the holidays, in what's going on? And I added who decides and how do you decide? And I I have some very brave friends, and I have some very brave friends who have done some things like take people living with dementia to the state fair or take people living with dementia fishing in the woods. And so people have varying degrees of how comfortable they are. And I think what it comes down to is what does the person living with dementia want and need and what means to them? And that comes back to communication, which is people living with dementia do communicate. It just might not all be words. So if we're at home and I put on some holiday music and the person gets restless and it's not working for them, they're communicating with me that that's really not working. So taking our cues from the person living with dementia. And I might do that not in a direct conversation way, but I might do that in a more conversational, curious kind of way. So I might say something like, Lisa, can you unmute for just a minute and talk with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So Lisa's going to be my person living with dementia. And I'm her care partner, whether I'm her daughter or partner or her whatever I might be. And I'm gonna say, so, so Lisa,
Melanie.
hey,
Hi.
I was looking at this um album the other day,
Oh.
and look at this
Oh.
picture I noticed.
Look at that. Oh.
That was you and me and my brother and my sister and daddy.
That.
And
Oh.
we were all, and I think that was at the holidays.
Oh, yeah, that looks nice. They look like they're having a good time.
Yeah, they did. So what do you think they were having the most fun with? Do you think it was the food that they had out there together, or do you think it was the toys that they had out there together, or do you think it was the music they were listening to?
Oh, we like music, so it might have been the music.
So the music that we were all listening to. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love music. Do you like more of the the religious music or do you like more of the kids kind of music? So something more like Oh Come All Ye Faithful, and I would play a part of Oh Come All Ye Faithful, or something more like Frosty the Snowman, and I'd play a part of Frosty the Snowman. Which do you like better?
Um, uh, um, the faithful.
The faithful one. Yeah. So what did I just figure out from that little conversation?
What would make her feel most comfortable?
Yeah. So what meant the most to her? Because I might remember what she liked, what she wanted. So I might be thinking more about all those fun little helpy, perky songs we used to sing when we were little kids growing up and we sang with the grandchildren and all that. But what she really connected with was the faith-based songs. And so that's going to be where I take my guidance from. So thinking about how is this person going to be able to communicate with me? And thinking about, and I may, we may have this idea of progressively lowered stress threshold. Do we have a video about that, Lisa? I wonder if we do.
I think it's mixed in with other things. I don't think we have a specific one on that. That's a great idea to do.
So I'll talk about that a little bit as we kind of finish up. So thinking about, is it the time to try something new? Is it the time to try a new setting or a new way of doing it? The Thanksgiving that was the first holiday at COVID, what we did as a family for Thanksgiving is we just had like Bojangles chicken biscuits because, there was so much fear about preparing food and serving food. We had gloves and we had masks and all the things. And we just went, really, we just aren't going to do this year. That worked for that year. I don't think that would really mean Thanksgiving for most of the people in my life, for most of the rest of their lives. So, is it really the time to try something new? And so, lastly, kind of trying that way for all of us to keep the routine without losing those symbols of the holiday. So, what do we keep usual? And what do we really plug into as this is what's special? And for all of us, because all of us are wired this way, for all of us to really let go of being right. And I put down cranberry sauce here because I was talking with a woman one day and she said, our family didn't speak for years because of cranberry sauce. Now, it wasn't really because of cranberry sauce. It was really because of what the cranberry sauce brought up, because the daughter-in-law made the cranberry sauce with fresh cranberries and all of the things. And the family's ritual was, the can that you just shake out. And the daughter-in-law fixed the cranberries and her finger feelings got hurt when somebody said, why don't we have cran? And it just kind of escalated, became way above. So the ability to let go of being right and go with the flow and really use your feelings and your emotions and your thinking to figure out what we're not deciding for the rest of our lives. And that's one thing I have to deal with because I'm one of those. So I was the one who had so much trouble with not having, even though I don't really like turkey, I was the one who had such a problem with not having turkey on Thanksgiving the year that we had chicken biscuits. But to really let go of some of that and reach out and find support so you're not going through it, whether it's an online support group, whether it's an in-person Dementia Alliance has some amazing resources. You can talk one-on-one, amazing support groups, talking with friends or families that getting and realize that not everybody is really going to get it. So I'm going to stop sharing because we are out of time. I'm going to mention just briefly this progressively lowered stress threshold, which is this way of thinking that we've got typical behavior, anxious behavior, and dysfunctional behavior. And it kind of escalates through the day and gets to the afternoon and evening. And the way to address that is to find some ebb and flow and notice when things start to change. So I bet Lisa will be able to find a video where there's a little bit more about that. And I just want to notice, Bob, you unmuted. Did you want to add something or ask something?
I am not I'm not muted. I'm just listening. But I feel we have to reduce our expectations when we deal with our patient, if you will call it that. I think that I'm not going to be involved in our plans for Thanksgiving. It's my favorite holiday. However, I am quite sure if I said to my wife, "Oh, the kids are coming over and we're going to have Thanksgiving tomorrow, her response would be, "What's Thanksgiving?"
And so that loss of your partner who was part of this holiday for years, it's different now.
Yeah, her memories of Thanksgiving are gone.
And
So-
so it's going, go ahead.
Forgive me for being a little sardonic, but I think that's the reality.
And I get what you're saying, that how we define the holiday, that's not going to work for her anymore. And if we I wonder if we kind of change a bit of that, if there might be some pieces that might trigger some sensory memories or some emotional memories. So you never know. Brains are amazing.
I think she would respond to the presence of individuals and be
Mhm.
pleased at that. She might be pleased at some of the food. She might reject some of the food entirely and see no significance in it. And we would all be very disappointed if we didn't reduce our expectations.
So being realistic in how this year it might look different. And that doesn't mean it is never going to be, it just means this year, we're not making decisions forever. For this year, this is what needs to happen.
Or things don't need to happen,
Or
need not to happen.
even more accurate, so much more accurate. This is what doesn't need to happen this year. Yeah, even more accurate. So I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank Lisa for vigorously pulling up resources, and turn it back over to her.
Thank you all so much for sharing today. I think we all learn a lot from each other when we join in. We're going to do another one of these on December 3rd. So please join us for that. And again, we thank our sponsors, ASI and Lily, for making this happen. And thank you so much, Melanie, for all your insight. We appreciate you.
Hey, Lisa, what's the topic for the one in December?
That's a really good one. I think it's making transitions in care, I believe. So that could be changing within your own home, different transitions, bringing in help, or it could be if you have to move. Yeah.
Thanks, Lisa.
All right.